Sup nerds, I'm CuppaJoey and welcome to our first ever episode of Hobby Drama. Now, drama has always been popular, whether we're talking Onision, Shane Dawson type things, Keemstar, or just, well, I think any beauty blogger at this point. But what happens when that drama is extremely low-key, like the kind of everyday drama that we all deal with? Well, that's where we find r/hobby drama. Now, so far it seems that this subreddit hasn't actually been noticed. But within there are some really interesting stories of small-time drama. They describe themselves as the most interesting subreddit about things you're not interested in. The small, obscure little hobbies here and there, they've all got their own drama going on, and they post it here, and it is really interesting. However, as it's drama, they get freaking long, which means that I'm only going to be covering one story per episode, and it does seem like I'm most likely going to be going well over 20 minutes, which is my normal cut-off point. So, get in your pajamas, get a nice cup of tea, put your feet up, and let's get into some hobby drama. Just a small disclaimer, the story that you're about to hear was written up and documented by TsundereStuffy on Reddit. The text for the reading, as well as all of the screenshots that you're about to see, were provided by them. I wanted to thank them for taking the time and effort to write all of this up, but also for giving me permission to read this on my channel. So, without further ado, we'll find out what happens when kinky TikTokers ruin the stuffed toy economy. Plush collecting. When TikTok, DDLG, and plush collecting collide. Content warning for blood and gore, sexual content. Background context, all prices are given in USD. Also preemptive disclaimer, I have no intention to kink shame others in this post. I try to remain as impartial as I could throughout. Everyone reading this or hearing this, if you've clicked on this video, probably owns or has owned at some point in their lives at least one stuffed animal or plush as they're more commonly called now. Some of us never stopped collecting, and continue to collect well into adulthood. There are all sorts of niches that plush collectors fall into. Some only collect very realistic animal plushes, others only collect a custom one-of-a-kind plush or art dolls made by artisans, and some others yet collect everything, etc. This post will focus specifically on those collecting kawaii plush, the Japanese word for cute. A majority of these plushies are made in Japan, designed by Japanese people and brands. Some companies in other countries also replicate the kawaii look, but these plush are not quite as popular. Various Facebook groups exist for plush collectors. The demographics of these groups tend to skew heavily female, and the age range for collectors of kawaii plush specifically skews from minor to young adult 30s. Although there are also a lot of older parents. Japanese plush are generally of high quality and thus command higher prices. In general, expect to pay $25 to $40 per plush if you're buying stateside, and that's before taking additional shipping costs into account. Even small mascot plushes, keychain size, about 2 to 3 inches tall, will go for about $15. Now, let's talk about these plush and their country of origin. In Japan, there's two markets when it comes to kawaii plush. The first is plush specifically manufactured to be sold in stores. Think branded Sanrio plush like Hello Kitty. These plush are of premium quality and generally are easy to obtain for standard releases, even for overseas fans. The second market is plush specifically manufactured for UFO catchers, of which the closest equivalent would be claw machines in the West, although everything from the experience to the mechanics of the playstyle is incredibly inferior in Western claw machines. Narrator note, probably because they're designed for you to fail. Okay, moving on. These are known as prize plush and are not sold in stores. The quality of these plush varies from good to excellent. Even the lowest quality prize plush tends to be leagues ahead of what's found in American claw machines. Those who are good at winning can buy them pre-owned or second-hand from shops and marketplaces catering to this sort of thing. All of this combined makes prize plush trickier for overseas fans to obtain. Enter Toreba, a global online service that allows you to play Japanese UFO catchers in real time through your phone using the internet. They have hundreds of machines for you to browse to, all of them stocked with the same current prizes that Japanese players have access to. You buy credits using real money and then play to, hopefully, win. Any prizes that you win are shipped to you for free. Hop over to r/Tureba to take a peek at winning videos to see how it all works. Off-topic warning, this is obviously a form of gambling, so be careful. Lots of people fall into the trap of spending hundreds or even thousands of dollars with very little to show for it, so I don't recommend playing it if you have an addictive personality. Tureba essentially cuts out the middleman, making it possible for overseas players to win prizes for themselves, or to pay others in their own country for them instead of importing them from Japan directly. Now, getting closer to the topic at hand, there's one designer whose plushies are consistently sought after. His name is Murray Chak, and you might even be vaguely familiar with his work if you stepped into a hot topic about 15 years ago. He's responsible for creating the Gloomy bear, an adorable but very violent pink bear that often ends up attacking his human owner named Pitty. Nowadays, his plush are only available as prizes, and their quality of construction tends to be pretty high, with unusually shaped plastic eyes, an oval instead of a circle, especially molded plastic claws, and embroidered blood spots. They come in dozens and dozens of different variations. Someone made a 3-part picture guide on Google Docs here. 1, 2, and 3. As you can see, I'm showing you a screenshot of what they look like side by side. Needless to say, there are a lot. In pretty limited runs, meaning they generally appreciate steadily in value over time as supply is limited and the same design is almost never replicated. They're more akin to soft art pieces than plush, as most collectors will display them instead of playing with them. Murray Chak is also the creator of another highly popular creature in the Gloomy universe, the all-purpose bunny, also known by collectors as the Chak's rabbit, who also comes in dozens of variations, including collaboration variations featuring a certain famous Miku Hatsune. This cute little bud is the main star of today's post, but first I need to briefly touch upon Murray Chak's politics as they are relevant to the subject. He's an animal rights activist that explores his themes through his work. A common trend is cute animals get revenge on humans for exploitation and abuse. The Gloomy Bear's story is that Pitty found the bear as a cub and took it back home to raise it. As the Gloomy Bear grew, it could no longer withhold its violent impulses and thus regularly attacks Pitty as retaliation for its unnatural upbringing. This is why a lot of the Gloomy Bear plush are regularly splashed with bloodstains. As for the all-purpose bunny, its story begins with being an experimental rabbit in a test lab. Genetic modification led to its strange properties and unnaturally long ears, and eventually retaliated against humans for its years of abuse. All-purpose bunny and Gloomy Bear often team up to attack and kill humans, using their unique skills and abilities to hunt them down in imaginative ways. The point is that they are no longer slaves to humanity. This is important. Finally, a very small description of DDLG, since these Kingsters play a minor role in this drama. Now, I'm going to pause it here. TsundereStuffy did write a lovely little paragraph explaining it far more than I'm going to here. All I'm going to say about DDLG is that it is a subset of the BDSM community, mainly revolving around daddy kink. It stands for Daddy Don't Little Girl, and it's generally, yeah. I mean, you all know what daddy kink is, right? I don't need to go into that too much. Okay, now, on to the drama. The drama, at last. On the 31st of July 2020, a TikTok video featuring an all-purpose bunny went unexpectedly viral with well over 1 million views. It introduced many people to Murray Chak and his creations, debatable as to whether or not this is a good thing, but most significantly, the creator of the video declared at the end, with quite a lot of emphasis, this is a bondage plushie.
This is a bondage plushie.
That proclamation changed the entire Murray Chak aftermarket literally overnight. There are at least half a dozen active plush collecting groups on Facebook, and every single one was bombarded by newcomers desperately trying to find one of these rabbits. Because the creator of the viral TikTok video didn't specify the actual plush name, you had people looking for that bondage bunny, TikTok rabbit, and other similarly ignorant terms. I regret not taking screenshots at the flood at the time, but here's a sample. Once you've seen one, you've seen them all. At the height of the frenzy, you could even scroll quickly for well over 30 seconds and see nothing but posts about the Chak's rabbit, even in groups that are usually very active. In fairness to the creator of the video, she clarifies that she meant it as a joke and has made a number of follow-up videos giving a more in-depth look into the lore. Unfortunately, none of these videos took off in quite the same way. So many had their impressions formed solely from the viral video. Luckily, although quite a lot of people directed ire towards the video itself, it seems the person behind them wasn't attacked. On Facebook at least, I don't have a TikTok account, so I can't see any comments on the video itself. Side note from your narrator, I don't have a TikTok account either, so if anybody can see if it has comments, then that would be good to know. These new collectors began snatching up rabbits left and right, sending the price of these rabbits skyrocketing. The rainbow one in a TikTok video, known as the fantasy fur variant, was actually not a very popular colour prior to the boom. They were going for around $25-ish plus shipping. Once that stock rapidly depleted, the price skyrocketed to $80 or more per plush, with some like the fantasy furs reaching $100. Which was ridiculous for a relatively new release. That price was usually reserved for the older, rarer Morichak plush. When all of the fantasy fur rabbits were gone, people began looking for other variants. Longtime collectors, afraid of having their most sought-after plush being bought up, also began buying in droves to try and secure their plush before others got into it. Compilation of images featuring people who purchased their most desired plush while they could, and the despair of those who were forced to miss out. As a result, the price of all rabbits began spiraling out of control, and this had a spillover effect on Gloomy bears as well. As a personal example, I bought this pink Argyle variant on the 20th of June 2019 for only $15 including shipping, which was a little cheap for its going rate. Others were going for about $25 including shipping. Today, the 13th of September 2020, that exact same rabbit is on eBay for $65 plus $15 shipping, or on Mercari for $85 plus $5 shipping. This goes beyond the normal appreciation I mentioned in the beginning of my post. Yes, Morichak plush did rise in value over time, but generally not to this degree. This was definitely unprecedented. Fallout, or The Drama, Part 2. Whenever new fans begin to flood a community, there will inevitably always be gatekeeping and other minor clashes. Many old fans were frustrated by the sudden sexualization of their collections. Some collectors were parents who shared their plush with their children, which made the sexualization extra icky. There were a few posts involving newcomers making creepy comments on collection posts, like insinuating that the OP must have a lot of fun with those rabbits, or I see those bondage bunnies. There was one instance where the rabbits actually belonged to the OP's very young child for added grossness points. Luckily, these sort of exchanges tended to get deleted very quickly with the offended users banned, which helped ensure they never overran the groups. Fans who ascribed to Morichak's philosophy were frustrated by this perversion of the rabbits, because it explicitly paints the all-purpose bunnies as being slaves of humanity yet again, now for sexual reasons. Of course, many new fans pointed out that the all-purpose in the name naturally means that they could be used for sexual reasons as well, which is a valid interpretation, but also seems antithetical to Morichak's original intentions. There were a few newcomers who very stubbornly refused to view the plush as anything other than sexual. Here's a screenshot of a conversation that is now deleted. This person was soon banned after continuing to fight with others, and they weren't the only one being super weirdly stubborn about sexualizing these plushes. And then there was the influx of littles, remember them? Now, TsundereStuffy actually went into a little bit more detail about DDLG than I did. Just to make, just to go over it very quickly, the LG stands for little girl, and you can also have, LB and LMB. And generally, people who like to be in that role enjoy kind of playing with childish things, such as toys, colouring books, etc., along with the whole BDSM side of their relationship. Now that that's covered, we'll get on to what they had to do with this. And then there was the influx of littles, remember them, who were tickled by the idea of a functional set piece. Not only are these plush cute and integral to the adorable little girl aesthetic, but they were also usable in sexual play. No, not really. So, as you can see in these screenshots, people are just essentially explaining that using the rabbits for bondage, so what the people were actually doing by making them a bondage buddy was that they were using the ears to tie each other up. However, the problem with that is that the ears are not supposed to be for that purpose, and so they are actually damaging the item, which is worth a lot to these collectors, so you can see why they would get a little bit frustrated about it. Especially when there isn't just a chance of damaging the plush. As you can see from this screenshot, you can actually damage yourself as well, so yeah, they're not safe. Remember how I mentioned that some practitioners of DDLG tend to make it a lifestyle and not just a kink reserved for the bedroom? No, because I skipped over that because I'm a sensitive boy. Some, not all of course, of these new littles ended up being incredibly bratty and rude to the sellers in the groups. Oh my goodness. Many of these sellers are just other collectors as well, by the way, not wholesalers. As a result, the community is very close-knit and it's easy to get yourself unknowingly blacklisted. If you're cruel to one seller, they will almost certainly warn the others. In case you're wondering how I know these people are littles, it's because I've seen them bring it up at some point or another. Small disclaimer, the Facebook app allows you to view all of your joined group's posts within one page, which unfortunately has made it incredibly difficult for me to try and figure out where I saw each and every post. As a result, I apologise for not having more screenshots. Also, some of the posts and comments I reference have been deleted by either the user or the admin/moderators of the group, so I have no screenshots for those either. Which, you know, when you think about it, makes a lot of sense. Now, just a little heads up from me, your narrator. The next part of the story does have some issues with lack of consent. So just a heads up that there may be some potentially triggering content coming up. Brief summary of some exchanges involving the littles that I saw. One little asked the seller a number of involved questions, including asking for more detailed pictures, height and weight information of the plush, examples of the seller's packaging, etc. A little annoying, but completely valid questions to ask and well within your rights as a buyer. However, once she was seemingly satisfied, she dropped a, "Let me ask if my daddy will let me buy it." She later returned with, "Daddy said no," which ended up wasting everyone's time and also raised concern. We'll touch on this later. This type of exchange began happening with increasing frequency where different littles would essentially string a seller along before using their daddy's disapproval as a reason for backing out of the sale. Another little didn't seem to enjoy plushes at all, which already is a bit of a red flag for someone joining a plush collecting group. She made a post searching for all-purpose buddies for sale. A seller commented informing her that they no longer had the rabbits for sale, but they did have several Gloomy bears for sale. The little asked, "So, what does the Gloomy bear do?" She was informed by the seller that the Gloomy bear is simply another cute plush, and the little promptly responded, "I don't want it then." It became clear that she was only interested in the all-purpose buddy for its perceived sexual function, and likely wouldn't enjoy it at all if it was just a plush. Overviewing changes in group dynamics I've noticed. The plush collector groups that I'm in tended to be pretty open-minded. No one bashed other people's collections. Some of these groups are a catch-all for all types of plush collectors, and some are more focused, but everyone was supportive of others' collections. It was a very positive and uplifting community. After the TikTok boom, people began being more judgmental. There were a number of posts about how people found the Chax rabbits ugly or overrated, and posts from newcomers judging long-time members for their large collections. A lot of judgment, primarily from newcomers, was introduced and still hasn't been totally weeded out, although it's much better now. 2. These groups are safe for work and meant for all ages, so long as you're old enough to join Facebook anyway. There are a very large number of minors in these groups. This means no sexual content is allowed, but because of the TikTok video, a large number of littles have joined the groups, leading to concerns that they would attempt to transform the space to cater to them. There is definitely some not-so-subtle dog whistling going on, and members openly calling their significant other daddy and referring to themselves as littles treads a very fine line that each group's admin rules differently on. Members tended to fall into two camps. Some thought that any and all mention of DDLG was inappropriate for the all ages groups, while others thought that there was no harm in using the terminology openly. Those in the former camp believe that whatever happens in the bedroom should stay in the bedroom so long as it involves consenting adults. Just like how wearing some of your BDSM gear out in public is distasteful because it pulls unconsenting people, strangers who might notice, into your fetish, some people believe that DDLG language is being openly used where anyone, including minors, could read it was equally distasteful. Those against it believe it openly establishes the sexual proclivities dom-sub of DDLG members to strangers who may be uncomfortable unexpectedly learning about the sexual lives of others and, more importantly, did not consent to gaining this knowledge. There's also the concern that such language can promote a troubling female subservience dynamic to uninformed minors, especially if these minors regularly see female collectors relying on their male partners for permission to buy a plush, as well as being coerced by their daddies to sell plush when they have too many, an entirely subjective opinion. B. The latter camp is comprised of defenders of those in the DDLG kink, and they often state that no one has the right to question their relationship and that doing so was kink shaming. They also say that by questioning their usage of daddy or little, it was exposing minors to the kink when they may not have noticed the verbiage to begin with. They also argue that daddy could be used entirely innocently, and that it isn't the admin's or mod's place to verify the intention behind their words. Because this is a tricky subject, and no community wants to alienate a large portion of their members, as a result, none of these groups explicitly ban DDLG practitioners from using their terminology. Any drama that crops up is usually stifled quickly, and people have more or less come to terms with the fact that just about anyone might be a little. The aftermath. How are things today, about 6 weeks after the TikTok video? It depends. Prices for anything Mori Chak related are still inflated, especially as the supply continues to dwindle. What used to be the old normal is now seen as a good deal. The more abrasive newcomers have been banned, and the kinder, more open-minded ones have stuck around. We love them. It's doubtful that the production numbers for Gloomy Bears or all-purpose bunnies will be raised any, and the newest set of Gloomy Bears seem to be selling at only slightly inflated prices, so interest is probably dying off. I don't know what Mori Chak thinks of this whole thing, but people in the hobby are definitely aware of it in Japan because prices on Japanese secondhand sites have risen as well, and many sellers have begun selling on international eBay to take advantage of the hype. There are still littles in the groups that openly identify as such. If anything, there are more now than there were before, but drama specifically involving them basically doesn't happen anymore. But hey, we got memes. In the end, isn't that what everyone on the internet wants? And then after this, TsundereStuffy signs off with, if there are any loose threads I failed to tie up, feel free to let me know and I'll answer your questions and edit the post for clarity. Thank you for reading, and I hope you enjoyed the drama. I absolutely did. And there we have it, folks. That is the story of how it took just one TikTok video to completely destroy a niche plushie market. Now, I do realise that the market wasn't destroyed, however, it is very difficult to get plushies for a decent price now. On the other hand, I suppose that if there are collectors, then having got a plushie for $15 that's now worth about $65 is only going to be a good thing. The thing is that when you look at the original TikTok video, I mean, I showed a little bit of it earlier where she was saying this is a bondage rabbit, which, it seemed that she got that impression just from the label because there's a bit where it looks like it's tied up. Because, you know, of course, anything tied up is inherently kinky. That's why, you know, the first examples of pornography you would get in the past were, you know, the old guy, twiddling his moustache and tying the heroin to the train tracks. That was actually pornography, I swear. But it's just such a weird thing to hear for one TikTok video and then just assume that that's what it's for, because if that were the case, then surely you would be able to find it in any kind of BDSM-specific shop, as opposed to these, like, claw machines. Now, I did actually have a little go at one. I had a go at Clawy and another, sort of claw-type machine, but with the UFO dropper, you know, the traditional Japanese ones. And I spent a total of £20 on there. I was in a queue for fricking ages, and then eventually played this thing, and I managed to move a plushie a little bit, and then I was told I had to get back in the queue, and I'd already used up, like, a £5, so... For me, it just wasn't worth it. I mean, gambling isn't a vice that I have purely because I find it more frustrating than anything. You know, I don't enjoy it. I think, oh god, I wasted money on nothing. I got nothing out of this, you know, there's no thrill for me. It's one thing if it's an odd raffle here and there. I actually popped in £1 to my local charity shop's raffle, so I am a little bit of a gambler, but that's about as far as it goes. TsundereStuffy said it perfectly in that if you do have an addictive personality, that you probably, or at least if you have an addictive personality in terms of gambling, then you definitely should stay away from these kinds of claw machines. And there has actually been some controversy in the past where there have been YouTubers, such as, I believe, Rice Gum, who were advertising gambling to children, essentially, by saying, oh, if you send, buy one of these tickets, then you can get a prize. It could be a keyring, or it could be, the latest console, and each time it was a keyring, and half of the times the keyring didn't even frickin' arrive. So there definitely is a lot of risk when it comes to these sort of claw machines, especially with the ones where you're just like tapping on your phone because you're not feeling the money actually go into the machine. Because that's the thing with like claw machines in real life, is that you can actually feel the money leaving your hand, and that does have a psychological effect that we wouldn't necessarily feel when just using our card for payments as we do in the App Store. Team up with the fact that, well, as TsundereStuffy said in their text, a lot of people that do this sort of thing are minors, so it kind of gets people gambling young. That's one of the main problems with these. However, there's I do like a good claw machine, okay? Like I said, I spent £20 on these apps and it didn't quite work. However, I have spent an obscene amount of pocket money just on like normal claw machines that I play every day. I once won a Patrick Star in China. That was probably my most recent win. Other than that, I think it was literally just once when I was a kid, and then that was it. So it is a bit baby's first gambling. Now, let's move away from the whole issues with gambling and move on to our favorite discussion that started off in this this episode of Hobby Drama, which is that of the DDLG community. So, if you remember, TsundereStuffy stated that in terms of DDLG language being used within these groups, people fell into main two camps: those that were like completely against it being used in any context within the groups, and the others like being alright with it as long as it wasn't overt. So calling their partner daddy or whatever is fine, but as long as they're not saying, oh, by the way, we use this to shag, that's fine, okay? And I'm gonna give my opinion on this now. Whatever you do in the bedroom should absolutely stay in the bedroom. Now, the problem with this is that there is a lack of consent, and that is the main issue that I have with any kind of kink like this, where other people are brought into it without their knowledge, because that is completely unacceptable. If you want to dress up in a nappy and call your partner daddy, and that's how you get your kinks, or rather your kicks, then go ahead. It's not hurting anyone, and my opinion of it, doesn't matter at all. However, the dynamic completely changes when you're bringing other people into it. Now, it doesn't matter whether these are dog whistles that go over their head or not. The fact of the matter is you're bringing them into a sexually charged situation that they are not consenting to, and that is where the issue is. I don't care about the kink itself, as long as you're both adults, both consenting, both happy, or all consenting, all happy, it doesn't just have to be two people, then super duper, I'm glad that you're all having fun. Now, I know that I am, I'm on the asexual spectrum, so, my 2 cents might not be worth all that much compared to others. If you do want to know more about the BDSM community, then I do suggest checking out Cat Black's channel, because she does talk about it in quite a lot of detail. In a way that's kind of user-friendly for people that aren't in it, like me. So, let me highlight the main issue with consent. Now, the thing is that when people talk to sellers in this way, so for example, ask all these questions about the plushie, and then say, sorry, daddy wouldn't let me, it's bringing them into the kink, right? You are calling your partner daddy in front of them, you are getting into the little space, you are getting into the subspace, and you are getting involved in the BDSM space with another person who has not consented to be in there. And that is the main issue. Now, it doesn't matter whether they know daddy is inherently to do with DDLG or not. Because the fact of the matter is, why are you bringing it up around them? You're bringing it up around them as part of your kink. It isn't just because you love your partner so much and you want to call them daddy. It is because it is specifically because of the way that you get off with your partner, and you're bringing someone else into that who is most likely going to feel really uncomfortable with that. I know that I would, and not only uncomfortable, but really frustrated at the fact that you just wasted their time asking all this stuff about a plushie only to go no in this faux cutesy way. Now, if somebody actively says in a group, I don't care if you use DDLG terms around me, it doesn't matter, you can call your partner daddy if you want, then they've consented, right? They've consented to be in that situation. They don't care. They're happy to be part of it. They're happy to be part of whatever, if there's a voyeur or exhibitionist kind of vibe to it, then they seem to be happy to be part of that. However, not everyone is. You can't ask everyone within a group whether they consent to be part of this sexual dynamic that you've got going on, especially not when they're minors, and that is the problem. Because there is going to be a certain amount of people who definitely feel really uncomfortable with it as well, but don't have the courage to say so. And then there are people who are going to feel like they can't join these plushie collecting groups because, hey, they're going to be talking about sex stuff, and I don't want to be any part of that. And I honestly don't blame them. Especially when there are people who have been in this hobby for years and then they got people coming on like, nah, it's a bondage buddy, and, ruining the ears of highly sought after buddies, and also doing so in a way that would, cut off the circulation to your wrists. There is a reason why you have handcuffs in a certain way, because they allow for a certain amount of movement while restricting the movement that you want in order to adhere to whatever sexual thing you're getting up to. So the thing is it really shouldn't be spoken about in such a way outside of situations where people haven't explicitly consented to it. So where you would get, for example, a munch, which is where people in the BDSM community will meet up and just talk about BDSM, maybe try a bit of rope without, actively having sex with one another, then calling somebody daddy in that space, people are all part of it, they're kind of aware, and they're going to be aware of the dynamics and the relationships that you have, even if they're not actively participating. So in that sense, you can see why it's fine. However, if you're just talking about plushes and bringing kink into that, it doesn't matter whether it's lifestyle or not, you cannot do that without consent of other people. It's like when you see, there is this one picture, and I'm not going to bring it up now because I don't want to have to go and find it. I quite like my Google search history as it is. But there is a picture that has gone round of a couple kind of in goth gear, where the man, it's a man and a woman, and the man has got a collar around the woman's neck and is dragging her along by a dog leash. Well, I say dragging, they're both clearly walking. But the thing is that they're out in public, having this walk as part of their kink, and everyone who can see them is part of that. That's the thing with exhibitionism, is that there has to be consent. You have to find somebody who is a voyeur and just make sure that everyone's down to fool around in the way that you would like to. You can't just go out and then get off on the shock from other people. That's the problem. The one thing I do find quite interesting is the whole morality behind why the plushes were created, like with Gloomy Bear. The idea being that he was taken as a cub, and of course, bears aren't supposed to be pets. So, in the way of animals being used in just another way, I can actually get on board with that. I understand that there's kind of a beautiful irony to it in that way. I do think that that's kind of interesting, I won't lie, but at the same time, I mean, Morichak hasn't said anything about it, so I don't know whether he's very uncomfortable with it or just pleased that he's making some extra money from these freaking degenerates. And yeah, don't whine kink shaming in the comments because I said degenerates. We're all degenerates. I'm trans. I'm a degenerate based on that. Deal with it. But the fact that there could be this mistake made by a viral TikTok video, just like a small misunderstanding that got corrected, but nobody listened to it, and now a whole tiny niche hobby is just completely has had its market ruined because of that. I mean, I would be so peed off. I mean, I do actually collect some plushies. I don't collect Mori-Chak at all. But if it's anything to do with like a plushie of something that I'm interested in, like Pokemon, then yeah. I have a load of Neopets plushies as well. I am like currently trying to get as many of those as I can because you don't see many Neopet stuff anymore. So I definitely understand. And if there were people that were suddenly freaking getting off on Rainbow Bunnies, I'd probably be a little bit annoyed that those are now too expensive for me to get. So I definitely understand why people are freaking pissed off about this. And I must say, I definitely appreciate what the OP said. Well, what TsundereStuffy. Sorry, I really feel like I should call them by their username because they're really nice. I think that they highlighted something really interesting when they said that these are more like soft art pieces as opposed to actual stuffed animals. Because on the one hand, yeah, there are kids that are going to play with them and get enjoyment out of them because of that. But then when there are people that keep them pristine, yeah, it is art. It's done in an artistic way, and especially when there's a message underneath it about how humans use animals. And I really do think that alternative forms of art expression, like in this sense, it is the creation of a plushie, that those aren't appreciated as much as, say, paintings, digital art, and such. So it is nice that it was described in that way. But at the end of the day, there was one TikTok video that got misunderstood and just inflated the prices of a niche plushie market because of perverts. And that is just... You can see why I felt the need to cover this. It's not something that you come across, and definitely one of the more interesting niche hobby dramas that I have come across. And again, I'm really thankful to TsundereStuffy for allowing me to read this, because they were the one that, you know, everything that's from me is just the video editing and then me giving my commentary at the end. Everything that was written up was by them, and they also provided all the screenshots and examples that I used in this as well, because, hey, they did it for their storytelling, so I thought, why not? Please let me know what you thought of this video as well. I know that this is slightly new. I tend to do, you know, sort of shorter, funnier videos. Not that this wasn't a bit funny to go into, but this is slightly different because I'm discussing drama, so I would like to know what people thought of that. Whether you would like to see more from this kind of thing, because hobby drama has a lot of different really niche dramas which, you know, you might not hear about if you're only listening to the kind of big drama from the beauty community and PewDiePie and the royals and whatever celebrity bollocks is going on. Like, the small-time drama is what I find really interesting. So if you find that interesting too, then I would really appreciate it if you let me know down in the comments so I know to make more of these videos. If you enjoy watching my content, then please consider throwing me a few pennies down at my Ko-fi down below. Currently, I am just making these in my back room, and I'm making absolutely no money from this whatsoever. If you would like to just buy me a coffee, you can throw me as little as £3 down below. If not, thanks for just enjoying my content, and I hope you enjoy the episode. If you'd like to hear from any other subreddit, then do let me know in the comments. And as well, if your niche hobby has got any small-time drama that you don't think anybody has heard about, but you would like them to know, then feel free to pop me an email. You can find my email on the channel. It's very easy to come across, and if you'd like me to read out the drama that's been going on in your community, then, you know, just let me know and I will do so. And until then, I will see you all next time.